All right, folks, we have another portable PlayStation rumor coming in hot, this time coming from legacy media, that being Bloomberg. And for those keeping track at home, we've now had a number of rumors regarding this possible handheld that Sony's developing that would be local play, so not something you stream from Sony servers or from a personal PS5 console. At this point, we have had so many rumors regarding this. The development for this SoC that would be powering this portable PlayStation kind of goes back to, I believe, the first one being Moore's Law is Dead. That was back when he published a video regarding PS5 Pro internal documentation that was given to developers, and that was very much confidential info that got that video taken down by SIE. But in that video, he was discussing that, there's another SoC in development for possibly a handheld. Not sure if that's for PS5 or PlayStation 6. So that was some very early information. Then we had Anton Logvinov show up. That was the Russian journalist that this was like during TGS or something, mentioning that Sony brought a prototype to TGS and talking with studios and possibly the press as well, which that part doesn't really add up and make a whole lot of sense. So that one was a little bit sketchy, but we also had Kepler L2 on NeoGAF, Kepler being privy to a lot of ongoings in the hardware business, and so they mentioned for PlayStation 6 very recently that Sony is developing two SoCs where one could be for PlayStation 6 presumably, but the other one might be either a lower priced SKU like a Series SX situation, or it could be for a handheld. And then this past Friday on LTPS, we had the one Chip Hell Forum leaker, where they too also brought up this portable handheld that is going to be powered by AMD. And so now we have a report from Bloomberg by Takashi Mochizuki and Debbie Wu, where they mention that the Sony Group is in the early stages of developing a portable console that could play PlayStation 5 games. And the device is aimed at expanding Sony's reach and competing with Nintendo, and that's according to an undisclosed amount of people that are familiar with the matter. So we don't know how many sources, but it sounds like it should be at least two, and Bloomberg is legacy media, so they are going to have a certain standard and ethics path that they're going to follow in terms of what they choose to report on. So it's a little bit more substantial than when we have things popping up on Twitter or, NeoGAF, God forbid. But they do mention that the device is aimed at expanding Sony's reach. And the report goes on to say that the handheld is likely years away from launch, and the company could still decide against bringing it to market. And that's not conjecture from the authors of the article, that's from the sources themselves. So implying that they're still maybe not 100% sure if they're even going to want to ship this thing, and it is still very far away, which would position the company next to Microsoft in a similar manner, where they just recently were very open about this, that they too are working on handhelds. But this is where it gets interesting, right? Because the entire discussion, well before these rumors have even happened, like the thing I always say is, like, if Sony ever does portables again where we're talking about local play, it would have to be, at the time, the most relevant platform that would make sense is PS4 games. It would have to be a portable PS4, log into PSN, there's your library. That's why the Steam Deck is such an attractive option, because you log into Steam, there's your games, they just work. Mostly. So that would be the case for PS4. But the timing of this product is so not quite unusual, but it's so fascinating to consider where the company would be, because you can't ship something that's going to play PlayStation 5 stuff right now and it not be absurdly expensive or even remotely possible given thermals and battery life. And that depends greatly on if you're even going to make a device that is going to completely play every single PlayStation 5 game right now. The most realistic thing would be to whitelist and blacklist certain games, unless a studio has to go out of their way now to ship a game on an updated SDK that now allows them to make a lower or a watered down mode of that game, I should say. So now there's multiple settings of a game where, depending on the device it's being played on, so a base PS5, a PS5 Pro, or this new PlayStation handheld, and then you would unlock local play on that handheld, and the Portal could still sort of fit in as a lower priced handheld accessory that you can buy into, and it only has the streaming option, and you can therefore play the higher end versions of those games without having to play them locally. But you can just see where all these things kind of fall into place. Like, that's what the company would probably do. But this would be near the end life cycle of PlayStation 5, so we're also talking about PlayStation 6. That's what Kepler L2 was getting at. That's what Moore's Law is Dead was getting at, is that, sure, there's this SoC they're developing, and they might not even end up shipping this thing, but if they do, and it's near the tail end of the PlayStation 5 lifecycle, that would look a bit odd with new hardware coming out, and oh, hey, here's this new handheld that's not going to play any of this stuff on PlayStation 6 unless the new developer mandate on PlayStation 6 is going to be, you have to, if you're a studio shipping on our platform, you have to make a PS6 handheld version of this game. So anything that's on the upper end of AAA, you're going to naturally see those games do what a lot of titles see nowadays on, say, PS4 or low-spec PCs, which is reducing frame rate resolution, draw distance detail, LOD distance, just sight lines in general, turning off RT, certain visual enhancements, the foliage, just various aspects to sort of bog those games down and get them running on your minimum spec hardware. So a portable is going to be a pretty low minimum to bear in mind. And that's really only going to apply to not many studios because it's still, as we often say, diminishing returns. There's really more a limit and ceiling on how many studios can even make, the kind of experiences and games that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars that really push hardware nowadays. So conceivably, most things on PlayStation Network with a PS4 and 5 label, we all know that stuff can probably play on a handheld no problem. And the developer environment will be more conducive to those kind of experiences too, because we can't overlook the idea that Nintendo will have their next round of hardware out there. And that is probably going to do very well. I think a very safe bet here is Nintendo's next Switch handheld is going to do very well. That's going to create a very healthy dev environment for what is a new minimum on performance, because it's going to be greatly exceeding what the Switch can do, which also means Switch and PS4 might finally be, as far as developer and software support, that might finally be donezo in the next 3-4 years if this next round of Nintendo hardware comes out and we have Microsoft and Sony releasing some handhelds that really bump up that minimum. Either way, the positioning of it makes it very interesting. I've always thought, yes, I have no doubt in my mind, even without these rumors, that the company was working on a portable that can do local play. The big caveat there is, will they actually make it and release it and sell it? Is that in the interest of Sony? Considering Nintendo has done very well with the Switch, with portable PCs doing really well, Microsoft openly stating, yes, we're doing them too. I don't think Sony really wants to be out of position here. It would be a great extender device for what they're trying to do with the Portal per se, which is just keeping people playing on PlayStation. They track playtime very closely, right? They just want people to commit all their time to their platform, spend on their platform. So it's an extension device. It could very well be standalone since it will play locally. So that's a device that, in theory, can start speaking to Japan again, which they have not really been able to do for the last 10 years, basically, right? There's a lot of upside to doing portables now, where around the time the Vita came out, it was a little bit awkward, and Nintendo understood that at the time, too. That's why they left dedicated portables and did the Switch. So there was a bit of a low point. Now it's kind of sloped back up to where it's a lot more viable, depending on how you go about doing it, which is releasing a device that has this existing ecosystem. So if you're a hardcore PlayStation user and you've got a deep library on PSN, in theory, we might be looking at a portable PlayStation that you log in and you can just not even have to worry. You play PS4, PS5, maybe PS6 games on it. Really depends on how the company is exploring it and what ends up getting released to us. But having said that, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation and rumor, and I will see you all on Friday for LTPS, and that is it. Take it easy.